According to recovered archaeological evidence, some of which can be seen here, the Anunnaki were renowned for their immense height and stature. They were rumoured to be somewhere between 11 to 12 foot tall. There are even some reports that they were taller than that. It is not entirely clear, but what we do know is that the Anunnaki were giants. I will elaborate more on this subject matter later. For thousands of years, it has been a common belief amongst many Jews and Christians that the Old Testament title for Satan is Baal or Bel. It is a fact that Baal or Bel is the ancient Babylonian title reserved for Marduk, the chief fallen angel. The late great Zecharia Sitchin actually publicly stated on more than one occasion that Baal or Bel were the ancient titles for Marduk. Other variations of Baal or Bel are Belial, Beelzebub. Throughout the course of history, including today, Marduk has been falsely revered by mankind as Almighty God, the creator of all things. I will explain. In the distant past, our ancestors believed in the existence of a pantheon of gods. Basically, the majority of human civilizations throughout ancient history, whether it was the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Greeks, etc., they all believed in the same pantheon of gods. However, each civilization had their own personal names that they gave to those gods. Marduk was usually regarded as the head of the pantheon of gods. And as I have already touched on, each human civilization had their own made-up name which they called him by. The ancient Egyptians renamed Marduk as Ra, and the Egyptians worshipped him as the head of the pantheon of gods. In this image we can see him wearing an eagle flight helmet. Above his head is the symbol of planet Nibiru. The ancient Assyrians renamed Marduk as Ashur, and the Assyrians worshipped him as the head of the pantheon of gods. The ancient Babylonians kept Marduk's name unchanged, maintaining the original spelling, and they worshipped him as the head of the pantheon of gods. The ancient Persians renamed Marduk as Ahura Mazda, and they worshipped him as the head of the pantheon of gods. The ancient Greeks renamed Marduk as Zeus, and the Greeks worshipped him as the head of the pantheon of gods. The ancient Romans renamed Marduk as Jupiter, and they worshipped him as the head of the pantheon of gods. In recent times, Marduk's name has undergone yet another change. Today, Marduk is now called Allah and is worshipped by the Muslim people. He is fraudulently and mischievously attempting to pass himself off as Almighty God, the creator of the universe. I will elaborate more on this subject later. Here we can see the list of name aliases that Marduk has used to identify himself as throughout the course of history. Now, if we apply these name aliases to the scenario portrayed in the Bible book of Revelation, where it describes a seven-headed beast rising up out of the sea with the names of blasphemy written upon its foreheads. First, it is important for us to bear in mind that Bible scholars agree that this seven-headed beast represents Satan and his 7 world ruling governments. Basically, each head represents a world ruling government throughout the centuries, each one in sequence, one after the other, right up until the time that Christ returns at the end of the age. Anyway, once we apply those name aliases mentioned earlier onto the foreheads of the seven-headed beast in this image, we can actually see that each one is blasphemous. Basically, they are the names of false gods worshipped by the different civilizations throughout the course of history. The latest one is Allah, which we are familiar with today. Most importantly, we must understand that these aliases shown in blue are all different names for Satan. However, his original and first name is Marduk. And just out of interest, if we examine ancient history, we will see that each of these false gods appear to have virtually identical characteristics. I will elaborate more on this later.